welcome to our accessible online review and tutorial. I am your lecturer for English. My name is Dian Marie A. Loreto. I'm a second-year Bachelor of Science in Meteorology student at Visayas State University. And this video is the first in a two-part series on English. And I'm gonna show you what you should expect in this subtest. Also, if you haven't answered the pretest yet, I suggest you answer it first before you watch this video. Okay? So let's begin. Okay, so the English subtest. This subtest is basically a fast-paced test applying most of your junior high school lessons in English. They're squeezing all those lessons in junior high into one short test. And when we say fast-paced, it means that you have more or less 30 seconds to answer each item. Well, that depends on how you budget your time. Also, the English subtest measures your ability to apply the rules of English language, specifically on grammar and syntax, vocabulary, and reading comprehension. And upon further inspection of the released DOST SEI exam reviewers, we found that most items are reading comprehension items, followed by grammar and syntax items. Vocabulary items are usually integrated into the reading comprehension items. So in this video, we will only be talking about grammar and syntax, and we'll reserve the reading comprehension and vocabulary for later. So for a short background, grammar is a set of rules that dictate how we construct words, phrases, clauses, and sentences, while syntax is a set of rules that govern the order or the arrangement of words in a sentence, okay? Now, these are the lists of subtopics that we'll explore for grammar. That's subject-verb agreement, verb tenses, and consistency in subject or verb. For syntax, we have rephrasing, paraphrasing, and sentences with similar meaning. Okay? So let's start with grammar. Grammar items usually come in the form of sentence corrections, like this. Okay? We will answer this item later. So first up is subject-verb agreement. Now, subject-verb agreement basically means that the subject and the verb have the same person and number. The person indicates whether the subject of the verb is in first, second, or third person, and number indicates whether it is plural or singular. Say, for example, we have cherry, which is one person and is singular. Its verb should also be in singular form. But if we have boys as subject, which is a number of persons or is plural, then our verb should also be in plural form. Which leads us to rule number 1. A verb must agree in number with its subject. Okay, a singular subject takes a singular verb, while a plural subject takes a plural verb. This is in do or does form, meaning if it is singular, s is added at the end of the verb. For example, she rides a jeepney to school every day. She is singular, thus its verb is rides. That is the basic form ride with an s. But if it is boys, it will become the boys ride a jeepney to school every day. Since boys in this sentence is plural, then the verb should also be in plural form. Okay? Well, an exception to this is rule number 2. The pronoun I, although singular, takes a plural verb. To illustrate, let's take the verb dance. We have this sentence, I blank to Otto Otto every morning. Although I is singular, this should not be dances. Rather, it should be dance. Okay, these two rules are easy to understand. Now, this next rule appears in most college entrance tests, and you will most definitely find it in the DOST SEI scholarship exam. Let's talk about the verb used for compound subjects joined by and, like Jerry and Anna, cookies and cream, puppies and cats. These are all compound subjects joined by and. The question is, what verb form should you use? Well, the answer, it depends. It depends on whether or not the subject is considered as one unit. Say for example, cookies and cream blank my sister's favorite ice cream flavor. Now in this first one, we consider cookies and cream as one ice cream flavor. Since it is only one flavor, which is singular, we use the singular verb is. Now in this next one, we have Jerry and Anna blank high school sweethearts. In the sentence, Jerry and Anna are two different individuals. Thus, we use the plural verb are. To illustrate further, let's go back to the question we showed earlier. We need to find the error in this sentence. Ham and cheese are my favorite sandwich, while water and pineapple juice are my favorite drinks. In this question, we notice two different compound subjects, ham and cheese and water and pineapple juice. What we need to do is tell whether or not they are considered as one unit. Ham and cheese in this question is a sandwich. It is thus considered as one unit. Whereas water and pineapple juice are different drinks. Thus, these are two units. Ham and cheese should then take a singular verb, while water and pineapple juice should take a plural verb. Since ham and cheese took a plural verb in this sentence, then A contains the error. Next up, collective nouns. Collective nouns are words that denote a group of people or things. Examples include band, school of fish, varsity, and jury. Like compound subjects joined by and, the verb form used depends on whether or not the subject is considered as one unit. If it is taken as one unit, it takes a singular verb. But it is plural if every member is thought of as an individual doing his own task. Say for example, let's take the verb rehearse or rehearses. Every morning the band blank in their own homes. Now we have this clue, in their own homes. So in this sentence, the collective noun band refers to every member of the band rehearsing on their own. Thus, this would take the plural verb rehearse. The band blank at Janine's every weekend. In this one, the word band is taken as one unit playing together. Thus, this would take the singular verb rehearses. Okay? Okay, next rule. Rule number 5. This one is also common in college entrance tests and scholarship exams. Let's take the words physics, the Philippines, and the Beatles. The common denominator between them is that these are words ending in S but are singular in meaning. Physics is a body of knowledge, the Philippines is a country, the Beatles is a band. So for nouns ending in S, but singular meaning, they take singular verbs. For example, physics blank a difficult subject. So this should take a singular verb, which is. Okay, so rule number 6, this next one is something you should look out for. Believe me, I became a victim of this rule. So our next rule deals with expressions like as well as, along with, including, accompanied by, in addition to, plus, and the like that intervene after the subject. These words do not affect the number of subjects. So if you see these words after the subject, disregard the phrase or phrases that follow it and focus on the subject. So let's take this item from your pretest as an example. Which underlined part of the sentence shows an error? So the 12-year-old boy, along with his classmates and their parents, are going to the amusement park. So in this sentence, this whole phrase, along with his classmates and their parents, do not affect the subject. We disregard everything that's stated here and focus on the subject, which is the 12-year-old boy. Since this is singular, then the verb should also be in singular form. Thus the error lies in letter D. Okay, for rule number 7, someone sent this photo to our group chat. So it reads, blank student wants to take a course in liberal arts. A, many, B, many a, C, a few, D, several. So the answer for this is letter B. And the caption reads, tama ba to? Bakit B sagot? May grammar rule ba na nag-a-apply dito? Well, to answer that question, yes. There is a grammar rule for many and many a. Many is always followed by a plural noun, while many a is always followed by a singular noun. Say for example, many students blank to attend the seminar. Many is followed by the plural noun students, thus it would take a plural verb prefix. The next one, many a participant in the play blank to ad-lib. So many a is followed by the singular noun participant. Thus it would take a singular verb prefers. Okay? Going back to the photo, we could find that the noun in the sentence is singular. All the other terms, many, a few, and several, these take plural verbs. Thus, we use many a. Okay, so for the last rule we're going to explore, here is an item you can find in our pretest. The sentence may contain an error. Choose the letter which corresponds to the part of the sentence which shows an error. If there is none, choose the letter D. Okay. So for Miss Taylor, her 16 years with the Woodhouses are hard to forget. So does this sentence contain any error? Well, the answer is yes. It can be found in letter C. Okay, let me introduce you to our last rule. Units of time like years, months, seconds, etc. take singular verbs. So we could say 15 years in prison is the maximum penalty for theft. Or 60 seconds is all it takes for an ice cube to melt. Okay, so the subject of the sentence is her 16 years with the Woodhouses. 16 years is just one period of time. It is singular. Thus, this must be followed by a singular verb. But here we have the verb are, and that is where the error is located. So the answer is letter C. Okay, so that's all for subject-verb agreement rules. Next up, verb tenses. Okay, verb tenses indicate the time at which the action was made. Each verb has three principal parts: the present, the past, and the past participle. All the tenses are formed from these principal parts. The past and past participle of regular verbs are formed by adding d or ed to the present form. An example of this is the word love or loves in present form. Its past form is loved. Its past participle form is also loved. The past and past participle of irregular verbs are usually different words, an example of which is the word ride or rides in present form. Its past form is rode. Its past participle form is ridden. However, some irregular verbs remain the same in all three principal parts. Examples include cut, hit, hurt, and let. These three principal parts, when coupled correctly with auxiliary verbs like do, does, did, has, have, had, shall, will, etc., help form verb tenses. A verb can be in the simple tense, progressive tense, perfect tense, and perfect progressive tense. Take note that we are not after these terms. Rather, we are after how to apply them in sentences. Because the topic verb tenses is quite long and needs to be reviewed thoroughly, we are not going to explore it further in this video. However, I have included links in the description box below to some videos on YouTube that I found helpful when it comes to verb tenses. Make sure to check them out before you take the post-test. And just to clarify, we are not affiliated to any of these channels. We are just providing you with sources that could help you prepare for the exam. With that said, let's go to consistency and subject or verb. In this part, we highlight that the nature of the noun or verb should be consistent or should agree with each other throughout the whole sentence or paragraph in other cases. To illustrate, let's take this sentence correction question from our pretest. Which underlined part of the sentence shows an error? Okay, the sentence reads, the old lady picked up the struggling puppy, straightening her hat grimly, and took it to the veterinarian. Okay, the subject in this sentence is the old lady. Now we have three different verbal phrases. That's picked up the struggling puppy, straightening her hat grimly, and took it to the veterinarian. Now let's take a look at the tenses used in each verb. Here we notice that picked up and took are in the same verb tense, but straightening is not. Again, the verb should be consistent, and we find that straightening is inconsistent with the two verbs. This should be straightened. From this, we can say that an error can be found in letter C. Another sentence correction question we can find in our pretest is this one. The sentence reads, Lucia's father's nephew is also his cousin. Grammatically, the consecutive possessive nouns here Lucia's father's nephew, is considered correct. The error doesn't lie in A, B, or C, but in letter D. We notice that the pronoun used for Lucia is his instead of her. Because in this item, we're talking about the relationship between Lucia and her father's nephew. In this sentence, we highlight pronoun-noun agreement. Again, the pronoun must agree in person and number with a noun. In this case, Lucia must have a pronoun, her. That's all for grammar. Now let's move on to syntax, which is all about the arrangement of words. First up, rephrasing. Rephrasing simply means that we change the order of words in a sentence but still retaining the meaning of the original text. One method is through changing the voice of the verb. The verb can have two voices. It can have an active voice or a passive voice. In the active voice, the subject of the verb is doing something. Example: Mrs. Rodney teaches biology. In the passive voice, the subject of the verb is being acted upon. An example of this is biology is being taught by Mrs. Rodney. Okay, so we can rephrase the sentence by changing the voice of the verb. The question is, how do we change the voice of the verb? Okay, let's take a sentence as an example. Mr. Smith found this old watch in his grandmother's bureau. This sentence is an active voice. But if we change this into a passive voice, this becomes: This old watch was found by Mr. Smith in his grandmother's bureau. So what happened was that the object of the verb, which is this old watch, became the new subject. The verb found became was found, which is a be verb plus a past participle. And Mr. Smith, in passive voice, became the receiver of the action. It became by Mr. Smith. So that's it for rephrasing. Let's go to paraphrasing. In paraphrasing, we rewrite a sentence using different words. It's somewhat like saying something in our own words. In paraphrasing, we do not include any of our opinions, we just aim to restate the idea of the passage. To achieve an adequate paraphrase, here are some steps that can be considered. Step 1. Locate the major idea units. We first find out what the passage or the text is talking about. Step 2. Change the order of major idea units, but maintain their logical connection. And step 3. Substitute synonyms for some words in the original. Okay, so let's apply these steps to an item from our pretest. Here we have the passage: the number of teen mothers continue to increase. Stronger programs on sex education and responsible parenting are needed. So we are going to choose a good paraphrase from these choices. Which of the following adhere to the steps we mentioned earlier? You can pause the video to answer the question. Well, the answer for this is letter B. Letters A and C lack the idea that the number of teen mothers continue to rise. Letter D, although it contained the two ideas, was not a good paraphrase because it lost its logical connection. So that leaves us with letter B, which satisfies the three steps. Lastly, for syntax, we have sentences with similar meaning. Okay, let's take this item from our pretest as an example. Which of the following sentences has a different meaning? You can pause the video to answer the question. Okay. Each option in this item talked about the change that technology-mediated communication brought about. The question is, in each option, what change did it bring about? We find letters A and D in a similar format. In letters A and D, what changed is how people build relationships, or how relationships are built among people. So these are similar sentences. Now, let's try to look at letters B and C, which is also in a similar format. So in letter B, what changed is how people use various media to build relationships. While in letter C, it is how people build relationships through various media. Since A, C, and D have similar meanings, the answer is letter B. Okay, so that ends part 1 of our lecture on the English subtest. I do hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, clarifications, and/or suggestions, just comment down below. Or you can also message us on our Facebook page, that's DOST Scholarship Review. Okay? It's important that you message us so that we can include you in our online community where we discuss clarifications on our lectures. So that's it for today. This has been your lecturer saying thank you and God bless. And also stay tuned for part 2.